Okay guys, we need to talk about offensive play calling and action PC football. Okay, the impetus for today's video comes from a message that was posted in mid-2024 to the Action PC Football forums. Now, get me straight here, I don't want to call out any of these posters or anything like that. I actually think that their points are valid, but I think that there is a solution here that they might not have fully considered. This poster complained that he couldn't get the 1988 Chicago Bears anywhere near their real-life running totals. He insinuated that the computer manager was keying the running back far too often. The poster complained that they could rely on the passing game, but that this was bringing the stats out of line. Now, before we go farther with this, I really should note that the 1988 Bears were not a run-only team. They nearly passed as many times as they ran, and they gained more yards through the air than on the ground. That Bears team is also hard to run with since most of the running went through Neil Anderson. He was so far ahead of the other rushers that I wonder how many times they actually were in the pro set. Now, the problem is that the computer manager will naturally key your only effective running back when you're likely to run. The argument is that Anderson can't get to his 4.4 yards per attempt when he's being keyed like that. You know, normally I would be tempted to pass this off as just nothing, but then others chimed in with similar issues in other seasons. Well, for example, somebody claimed to have Jim Brown running at only about 1 yard per carry during his seasons. Those totals, of course, are totally ridiculous. Now, I'm not sure if that number is exaggerated or not. If it's not, it's a pretty ridiculous total though, isn't it? And this evolved into a long discussion about the keying mechanic being overused and stats from before the 1990s not adding up right. Okay, yeah, it's obvious to me that there is a problem here. However, the more that I think about it, the more that I think the problem might actually be on the side of the players who are calling the plays and not necessarily on the side of the game itself. So bear with me for a moment as I explain. Well, first of all, it's kind of ridiculous to come into a game like this expecting your results to be an exact reflection of real life. This is especially true when you're calling plays by yourself instead of just relying on the game to make its own decisions. Now, it seems that some people are going to the extreme of just having the computer call the play to get around this lack of realism, or perceived lack of realism. But seriously, what's the fun in that? Yeah, you know, at some point in time you've got to come to grips with the fact that this is a game first and foremost. Sure, it's a simulation, but above all else, this is a game. I mean, the point here is not to do exactly what happened in real life. I think a lot of us who play a lot of baseball sims end up getting used to being able to just push the button and have the thing happen. This is a lot different. There's a lot of involvement from you as a player. The point here is to take certain situations with certain parameters and to then make the decision yourself. And that brings me to my second point, which is that you need to learn how to make play calls without being predictable. I realized this the other day when I watched this old Auburn at Texas game from 1984. This was back when Bo Jackson was with Auburn. Auburn spent the first part of the game constantly trying to run the ball, and Texas was looking for it, or in Action PC language, Texas was keying the running back. Now, when Auburn started to mix up the play calling a bit, they were able to gain yardage, even though Pat Washington really wasn't much of a passer. And then, when the linebackers had to worry about the pass, Jackson had room to run. So in other words, it's not going to work if you go into Action PC Football and just click on pass or click on run and expect things to work. And that wouldn't be much fun anyway. This game is not like some of those more simplistic football sims, and you guys already know which games I'm talking about. You've got to take a careful look here instead at the matchups, and you have to make the best decision based on what you see. And you really should stop worrying so much about yards per carry and worry more about the player ratings. Well, I played Georgia at Tennessee in my 1984 project just the other day. I took control of Tennessee, the home team. Now, apologies for the poor screen quality in advance. My screen recorder apparently had some problems. Anyway, if you look closely here through the blurriness, you can see that we've got a couple of interesting advantages on offense. Most notably, we've got a major blocking advantage, especially on the left side of the line. So if you follow basic logic, you would figure that we do best running the ball up the gut or off tackle to the left of the center, right? But that's where things become interesting. So chances are that the computer is going to end up looking for us to do exactly that, to run the ball up the gut or to run the ball off tackle or to run the ball first down and second down every single time, and that the computer will then adjust accordingly. So if you think about this carefully, you'll realize that you, as the offensive play caller, have the ability to call certain plays to throw the computer off of its own game. Okay, so in this case, we're running the ball behind Mayo, that good blocker, and we wind up with 3 yards, which is kind of a disappointment. So in the very next play, we decide to use the other running back to run to the right, and this works. We fool the defense. And now we've got them looking for another run, which is the perfect time to pass. Now there are other creative ways you can use as well, such as a bootleg run with your quarterback when you think the other team is going to key your running back. This works well. I mean, this works really well. And you have to kind of think backwards to know what to do next. In fact, if you pay attention, you'll see that the computer will show you how to do this. Let me give you an example. Later in this ball game, the computer made a bizarre decision. It decided to run these 2 bootleg runs in a row. Now the first one caught me off guard, but I was smart enough to use a defensive back to spy the quarterback to stop the second one. Basically, you need to think of the defensive backs as like some kind of currency. So you use one of them to protect against this, to protect against like a QB run. You use another one to protect against a possible run from the running back. Or maybe you have a couple of them play like to double team the running back who's coming out of the back for a passing play, just in case the quarterback dumps it off. And maybe you have one left over to blitz. But you can't have all of this happen and then have a whole bunch of defensive backs playing back for the pass, right? You can't have them do everything at once, and so you really need to make a careful decision about how you spend your running back or your linebackers. Anyway, the computer caught me off guard one more time by calling for a 3rd bootleg in a row. I was sure that they would not do that, and that play worked. So that's what the name of the game is here. It's deception. You want to make the other player or the computer think that you're going to obviously do one thing and then you do the exact opposite. Well, in this game, that strategy worked extremely well with calling passing plays out of the I formation, which is, of course, a run-heavy formation. The computer thought for sure that we would only run out of the I, which gave us a lot of one-on-one chances with our wide receivers. In this situation, we had 2nd and 7, which was an obvious running down. That gave us this one-on-one isolation for our best receiver, and the result was a big touchdown. Now, I do need to note here that I am not some sort of expert at this game. In fact, this game that we're looking at is the first time that I've actually won a game in my current project. However, the general rule does hold. You need to use deception to outsmart the computer coach. And above all else, make sure that you pay attention to the ratings. So those numbers will show you where possible advantages exist, especially on the line. You can then capitalize on those advantages to success. Well, and more than anything else, you really have to come to Action PC Football with an open mind. Don't judge the game based solely on yards per carry. If you want to open up the running game, you need to think about how you can make the computer defense think that you're going to pass and then take advantage of that situation. This is exactly the way that I got the computer to expect the run here and then passed to take advantage of what it was going to do. And above all else, more than anything else, stay tuned to this channel because we're going to really start digging deep into the world of football play calling and into how that can help you with Action PC Football and with other football sims.